My name is Nancy. I'm 30 years old. And this is the story of how my parents funded my brother's dreams while I starved, and how I made them regret it. If you ever visited the little house I grew up in near Austin, Texas, you'd see a perfectly ordinary home, white picket fence, 2-story, small porch out front. Nothing special. But behind that neat little lawn and polite exterior was a truth far less idyllic. To the outside world, we were the normal middle-class family. My dad, a science teacher at the local high school. My mom, a history teacher at the middle school 2 towns over. We weren't rich, but we had enough. Enough for summer road trips. Enough for after-school activities. Enough for birthday parties. At least, for my brother, Kyle. Kyle was 2 years older than me, and from the moment he was born, my parents treated him like he was carved from gold. If he sneezed, my mother would stop everything and rush to heat up soup. When I once had a 103-degree fever for 2 nights straight, my dad grumbled from the couch, "Take some Tylenol and sleep it off." He never even paused the game. I still remember how my mom would say Kyle's name like it was magic. Kyle this, Kyle that. If he made a doodle in the margins of his math homework, it went on the fridge. When I brought home straight A's, my mom would barely glance at the paper before saying, "Why don't you go play outside more, Nancy? Books won't raise your self-esteem." My 16th birthday? A gas station cake and a "don't make a mess" warning. But Kyle's 18th? They rented out an entire steakhouse in town. I wasn't even allowed to order dessert. There weren't bruises or cruel names. It wasn't the kind of abuse that gets whispered in CPS offices. It was quieter, crueler. It was forgetting to call me for dinner, but always saving a second plate for Kyle. It was watching my parents help him move into his college dorm while I took a bus to my community college orientation, alone. It was hearing, over and over, that Kyle was going places. That Kyle would make them proud. As for me, I was just Nancy. Quiet, invisible Nancy. I learned early not to expect much. I stopped asking for things. When Kyle got a private SAT tutor, I asked for a used prep book. My mom shook her head, saying, "Let's not waste money if you're not aiming high." As if dreaming small was my choice. I worked 2 part-time jobs during community college. Stocking shelves at the local grocer in the mornings, delivering food at night. I studied between shifts. Ate whatever customers didn't want. Laughed politely at rude customers. Wore the same shoes until the soles fell off and taped them together. I remember one winter night, the wind cutting through my threadbare jacket as I tried to nap in my broken-down sedan. The same sedan I used for deliveries. I looked up at the stars, wrapped in a blanket with holes, and whispered, "Just a little longer, Nancy. Just hang on." My parents never called. Not once. But they posted about Kyle's awards. His startup dreams. His internships. I remember one time when I visited home, Kyle had just launched a new app idea, some meal planning thing. There were balloons on the front porch and a sign that said, "Our future CEO." My mom hugged him like he'd just won a Nobel Prize. That same day, I told them I'd finished my associate's degree while working full-time. My dad said, "Good for you," without looking up from the TV. My mom asked, "You'll be applying for something practical now, right?" They weren't cruel. Just indifferent. And sometimes, I wondered if that was worse. I didn't hate Kyle. At least, not then. I didn't have the energy for hate. All I had was quiet disappointment. I told myself maybe, just maybe, if I worked hard enough, one day I'd be noticed. That hope kept me going. Until the night everything changed. I had just finished a double shift, grocer in the morning, delivery all evening. I was dropping off a pizza to one of those high-rise offices downtown. As I stood there, tired and sticky with grease, a sleek silver car pulled up beside me. The window rolled down. "Nancy?" At first, I thought it was a customer. But then I saw him. Salt and pepper hair, sharp suit, smile that didn't seem to match his expensive car. Uncle Jonah? I said, almost in disbelief. I hadn't seen my dad's younger brother in over a decade. They had a falling out over money and ambition, or at least that's what I was told. He was the black sheep, the one who didn't follow the safe path of teaching. The one who left town. The one no one talked about. He stepped out of the car and walked toward me slowly. It's been a long time. Yeah, I replied, suddenly very aware of the tomato sauce stain on my polo shirt. I just do delivery work now. You look exhausted, he said gently. Come talk with me. I'll take the pizza up. It's probably mine anyway. I blinked. You ordered this? He smiled. I did. I own the top 4 floors of this building. I stood there frozen, heart racing, half from shock and half from pure fatigue. He took the box, handed me $100 bill, and motioned toward the building steps. Come on. Sit for 5 minutes. I hesitated. Then followed. We sat outside, the streetlights painting him in a warm gold glow. Your parents still treating Kyle like royalty? He asked without looking at me. My stomach twisted. They don't even know where I sleep most nights. I thought so. He nodded. You remind me of myself at your age. No one believed in me either. I laughed softly. I'm not sure anyone even sees me. He turned toward me, serious now. That ends now. Tomorrow morning, come to the 24th floor. Ask for Celia. Tell her I sent you. I've got an internship open in operations. And I want someone who knows how to fight. My breath caught. But I don't have the qualifications. You have something better. Grit. I built my company from nothing, and I see that same fire in your eyes. He paused. But only if you want out. Only if you're ready. I nodded, the weight of years of silence suddenly crushing me. I'm ready. He stood. Then get some sleep. Tomorrow's the beginning of the rest of your life. As he walked away, I looked down at the $100 bill in my hand, then at the gleaming building rising behind me. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. Not by my parents. Not by Kyle. But by someone who didn't owe me a damn thing. And that, I knew, was just the start. I didn't sleep much that night. Even as I lay curled up in the back seat of my car, my only home at the time, I kept staring at the business card Uncle Jonah had slipped into the pizza box before he left. The bold, embossed lettering read: Jonah Wells, founder and CEO, Lucent Edge Technologies. 24th floor, Lucent Tower, downtown Austin. I traced the edges with my fingers like it was something sacred. I kept wondering, was this real? Was it a trick? Or worse, would I walk into that marble building tomorrow and get laughed right back out? But somehow, his words kept echoing in my mind. I want someone who knows how to fight. By 5:45 a.m., I had parked in a 24-hour gym's lot, not to work out, but to sneak into the showers. I washed my hair with the last of my travel-sized shampoo and dried my face with a shirt. I didn't have much, just my one good blouse, a wrinkled navy skirt, and shoes with taped heels. But I made sure every part of me looked like someone trying. I arrived at Lucent Tower 30 minutes early. The lobby alone looked like it cost more than my college tuition. Sleek black marble, water features bubbling softly, a front desk staffed by a woman in a headset who smiled like she knew your bank balance just by looking at your shoes. I told her I was here to see Celia on the 24th floor. She scanned my ID and handed me a temporary badge. Mr. Wells left word you'd be coming. The elevator ride felt like stepping into another universe. Everything smelled like mint and money. The 24th floor opened into a sunlit hallway with glass offices and clean lines. A woman with sharp eyes and a pencil skirt greeted me almost immediately. "You must be Nancy," she said crisply. "I'm Celia. Follow me." I didn't speak much on the way to the small intern desk she pointed out. My hands were shaking. But something in me refused to flinch. That day was a blur. Spreadsheets, data entry, organizing files for teams I couldn't even understand yet. Celia moved fast, gave little feedback. But she didn't look down on me. She just gave me work. And I did it. By 5:30 p.m., I was still at my desk, correcting a data sheet no one asked me to fix when Jonah stopped by. "Still here?" he asked, his tone unreadable. I straightened. I wanted to make sure everything I submitted today was clean. I made some mistakes earlier. His eyes narrowed slightly, not in disappointment, but in analysis. "Mistakes happen. The ones who own them? They rise fast." He nodded. "Come see me tomorrow morning. I want to talk about what you really want." That night, I didn't sleep in my car. I slept in the office break room. I used my backpack as a pillow and wrapped myself in my jacket. But I felt warmer than I had in years. The next morning, Jonah asked me the question that changed everything. "If I offered you a shot to earn a full-time place here, not a handout, but a shot, would you take it?" My voice didn't tremble. "Yes. I don't want pity. I want to earn it." He smiled. "Good. Then let's see what you've got." And from that day, I dove into the work like my life depended on it. Because it did. I stayed late every night. I learned everything I could from Celia, shadowed analysts, helped design feedback loops in internal workflows. The systems, the jargon, it was all foreign at first. But I studied during every break, took notes in a little spiral notebook I kept in my jacket pocket. I brought my own lunch, crackers and peanut butter. I wore the same shoes, polished daily. I didn't say much. But I made sure every task I touched turned into something no one had to correct. After 4 weeks, Celia started giving me complex tasks. She stopped double-checking my work. "You're fast," she muttered one evening. "And sharp." "That's rare." I smiled faintly. "I've had a lot of practice being underestimated." She looked at me then, really looked. "You'll fit in here just fine." By the end of the second month, I'd saved enough money to rent a room. It wasn't much, a tiny unit above a bookstore with one window and a heater that rattled like a dying bird. But it had a real bed. A door that locked. A sink I didn't have to share with gym-goers. The first night I lay down in that bed, I cried. Not because I was weak. But because I had made it that far, alone. Then came the moment I'd unknowingly been waiting for. Jonah called me into his office one Thursday morning. He handed me a sealed white envelope. "This is a job offer," he said simply. "Operations coordinator. You'll be supporting 3 departments, but I've seen what you can do. Full salary. Benefits. And access to our internal development program." I held the envelope like it was made of gold. I didn't speak, I couldn't. "You earned it, Nancy," Jonah added, his voice softer now. "You showed me something most people don't even know how to show, that hunger." I wanted to scream. Cry. Collapse. But instead, I just stood up and said, "Thank you for seeing me." He smiled. "Thank you for proving me right." But just when the world was finally opening up, the shadows of my old life crept back in. That Saturday, I got a message from my mom. "Mom, Nancy, I saw something about your new job on Facebook. Your cousin mentioned it. So proud of you. Come home soon, okay? We miss you." I stared at the message for a long time. We miss you? They hadn't even called when I was starving. They missed the version of me that could now make them look good. A day later came another text. "Mom, Kyle is pitching his startup idea to investors next month. He says you might be able to connect him with Jonah? We'd really appreciate it. You know how much this means for your brother. My stomach turned. They didn't care that I'd slept in a car. That I'd clawed my way up from nothing. They just wanted to use the one door I had built for myself. And it was in that moment I knew, this wasn't just about making a life anymore. It was about reclaiming something I never had: dignity, power, self-worth. And I wasn't going to hand that over. Not this time. When I didn't respond to Mom's message right away, she sent another one the next morning. Mom, Nancy, don't be stubborn. We're just asking for a small favor. Kyle has always supported you. Supported me? I stared at that sentence like it was a foreign language. Supported me, like when he forgot to pick me up from school and laughed about it? Or when he took my savings from the kitchen jar when we were kids and said I wouldn't need it anyway? Or maybe when he told his friends I was just his shy little sister who liked to play pretend at being smart. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry. But because I didn't feel anything at all. Not anymore. 3 days later, my dad called me. The last time he called, I was 17 and asking him if he could help me buy a used laptop for school. He told me, ask your brother if he's done with his old one. That laptop was already broken. Now, years later, his name lit up my screen. I let it ring 5 times before I picked up. Hello? I said. There was a brief silence, then his familiar gravelly voice. Nancy. How's the job? Good, I replied, flat. He cleared his throat. Your mother says you're doing really well. That's good to hear. Silence again. Then he dropped the act. Listen. Kyle needs help. He's launching this new app next month, and he's already met with a few angel investors, but everyone keeps saying they want a warm introduction. Here it comes. I hear your uncle knows people. Thought maybe you could help connect them? I didn't speak. The old version of me would have jumped at the chance to please, to finally be included. But this version of me, the one who had slept in a car while they never once checked in, felt cold. I'm not in networking, I said calmly. And Jonah's a CEO. He doesn't take requests like that. My dad's tone shifted. Nancy. Don't be selfish. Family helps family. You think your brother didn't make sacrifices for you? That was it. My voice didn't rise. I didn't shout. But I made sure every word was clear. Kyle had every sacrifice made for him. You gave him everything and told me to figure it out myself. And I did. So no, I won't ask Jonah for anything. I earned where I am. And I'm not handing that to someone who never once asked how I was surviving. He scoffed, then hung up. I stood there for a moment, the phone still pressed to my ear, the silence ringing louder than the call ever had. But I felt no regret. I didn't owe them anything anymore. Later that week, Jonah asked to meet me in the glass-walled conference room. I walked in with a clipboard in my hand, still prepping the new process optimization report. He motioned for me to sit. I heard from someone, he said carefully, that Kyle reached out. I nodded slowly. I also heard he name-dropped me at a networking event. Said you were going to help him pitch to Lucent Hedge's investors. I blinked. I never said that. I know, Jonah replied. That's why I shut it down. He folded his hands together, his tone gentle but firm. Nancy, you've earned your place here. Don't let them use your success to validate their failure. That stuck with me. Don't let them use your success to validate their failure. That night, I received a LinkedIn message from Kyle. Kyle, hey, heard you've got a great job now. Congrats. I'm working on something huge. Thought maybe we could help each other out, bring the family back together. It wasn't an olive branch. It was bait. And I was done taking it. I didn't reply. Instead, I buried myself in work. Caroline, our senior strategist, had recently given me a lead role in streamlining one of our vendor relations processes. It was tedious, full of cross-department conflicts and data inconsistency, but it was exactly the kind of problem I had learned to solve in silence. And for the first time, silence was working in my favor. Every day, I showed up before anyone. Every night, I left after everyone. My reports were accurate. My emails were professional. My name started showing up in meeting invites, not as a note-taker, but as someone who might actually have an answer. 2 weeks later, Caroline pulled me aside. "You've got instincts," she said. "I want you to sit in on the client-side development meetings. I think you're ready." It was the first time in my life someone outside my family said I was ready for something important, and meant it. Around this time, I got my first real paycheck. A full salary, health benefits, paid time off. I went to Target and bought myself a new pair of shoes. Not fancy. Not expensive. But whole. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I took myself out to dinner. Alone. By choice. It wasn't about celebration, it was about reflection. I ordered pasta and red wine, sat by the window, and watched the city lights dance like fireflies across the river. I didn't post a photo. I didn't send a text. Because this moment? It wasn't for anyone else. It was mine. A week later, Kyle showed up at my building. I was walking out with a stack of folders, mid-call with a supplier, when I saw him leaning against the security desk in the lobby. He looked just like he did the last time I saw him, too confident, too clean, too sure that the world would bend for him. When he saw me, he smiled. "Hey, Nancy. Can we talk?" I hesitated, then nodded toward a bench outside. We sat in silence for a moment. Then he spoke. "I know you're mad. I deserve that." I stayed quiet. He continued. I'm under a lot of pressure right now. This app, it's my shot. But investors keep brushing me off. You know how it is. Connections matter. Just a referral. That's all I'm asking." I looked him straight in the eye. "Do you remember when I asked Mom for money for prep books, and she said we couldn't afford it because they had to pay for your basketball camp?" Kyle blinked. I kept going. "Do you remember when you told your friends I was just good for making coffee and taking notes?" He sighed. I was a kid. So was I. I stood. I didn't get here because someone helped me. I got here because no one did. He looked up at me, for once with no arrogance. "You really won't help me?" "No," I said quietly. "Because I'm not your backup plan." I walked away, my heels clicking sharply on the pavement. Every step felt lighter than the last. And for the first time in my life, I knew exactly who I was. Not Kyle's sister. Not the forgotten daughter. But Nancy, the woman who climbed out of the darkness on her own terms. After that conversation with Kyle, I expected a storm. The silence that followed was worse. No more texts from Mom. No checking in calls from Dad. Just quiet, the same quiet I grew up with. But this time, it didn't hurt. It didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like peace. Like finally escaping a house that never truly welcomed you. At work, Caroline moved me to a new role, client integration lead. It was a position I didn't even think to hope for 6 months ago. My job now involved sitting across from corporate clients, listening, strategizing, and helping them streamline their internal operations. I took notes. I asked smart questions. And one by one, I saw people who used to overlook me start nodding when I spoke. I moved out of the room above the bookstore and into a small one-bedroom apartment with a real view, not of a parking lot, but of the river. Every morning, the sun poured into my kitchen window. I bought a little plant for the windowsill. Named him Jasper. He thrived in the light. So did I. But life has a way of circling back, not as a test, but as a reckoning. It was a Friday morning when Jonah knocked gently on my office door. "Got a second?" he asked, stepping in. He looked serious, not angry, not cold, but thoughtful. "There's something you should know," he said. "Kyle approached one of our junior VPs at an investor mixer last night." I felt the tension in my neck return. "He's still trying?" Jonah nodded. "Tried to claim that he and I were working on something together. Told them you'd paved the way." My heart sank. "I didn't." "I know," Jonah cut in gently. "That's why I made some calls. And I made sure his name was removed from the prospective venture pool." I exhaled, unsure whether I felt relief or embarrassment. "He's persistent," I muttered. Jonah sat across from me, resting one hand on the chair's armrest. "Nancy. I need to ask you something." I looked up. "If I give you full control over an internal expansion project, a new division we're building in the city's east sector, will you take it?" I blinked. "You mean, lead it?" He nodded. "It's your vision. Budget, staff, scope. You've earned it." I stared at him for a long second, trying to process what this meant. A woman who used to sleep in her car. A daughter who ate leftovers while her brother dined like royalty. Now being handed a multi-million-dollar project. "I'll do it," I said, voice steady. "And I won't let you down." His smile returned. "I know you won't." I spent the next 3 months buried in that project, drafting proposals, scouting locations, selecting vendors. I built a team of hungry, focused professionals who didn't care about pedigrees, only performance. I worked through weekends, barely slept. But every morning, I woke up knowing I was building something that no one could ever take away from me. And then came the letter. Handwritten. No return address. I opened it cautiously. The script was neat, old-fashioned. "Dear Nancy. We're writing to let you know your cousin is getting married next month. We would love for you to attend. The family is coming together, it's been too long. Kyle will be there. He's really hoping to reconnect. So are we. Please come. Love. Mom and Dad." At the bottom, in smaller handwriting. "P.S. It would mean a lot to and if you could speak at the reception. Everyone knows how well you're doing now." There it was. The real reason. It wasn't about family. It was about display. A shiny object they could place beside Kyle and say, "Look what we raised." As if they had any part in it. I didn't respond. I kept working. But part of me, the part that still carried the ache of forgotten birthdays and cold dinners, started to whisper, maybe it's time to let them see who you really are now. Not for validation. But for closure. 1 week before the wedding, I RSVP'd yes. I didn't tell anyone at work, not even Jonah. I didn't need advice. This was something I had to face on my own. The wedding was held at a hilltop vineyard outside Austin. The kind of place people rented with generational wealth or investor seed money. I arrived just as the sun dipped low behind the hills, wearing a tailored black dress and quiet confidence. My heels clicked on the stone path with purpose. A few heads turned. People I hadn't seen in years blinked and smiled nervously, unsure if I was the same girl who used to clear plates in the background. I wasn't. I walked into the reception hall where soft jazz played and candlelight flickered across the glassware. And rushed over, hugging me a little too tightly, like she was proud just to be seen next to me. "You look incredible," she said. "I'm so glad you came. Mom said you might say a few words?" I smiled faintly. "Sure." I could see them then, my parents, seated near the head table, already watching me. And Kyle, standing by the bar, a drink in hand, his expression unreadable. When it came time for speeches, I was handed the mic. I didn't write anything beforehand. I didn't need to. I stepped onto the small platform, looked around, and began. My name is Nancy, I said. Some of you know me as the girl who kept to herself. Quiet. Always in the background. A few nods. Some polite chuckles. But tonight, I'm not that girl. I'm the woman who spent years forgotten at the dinner table. Who studied by flashlight because the good lighting was reserved for someone else. Who asked for help and was told, your brother needs it more. The room quieted. I'm not saying this for pity. I'm saying it because people should understand, we don't all come from equal starting lines. And some of us have to fight just to be seen. My voice didn't waver. I built a life for myself. Not because of support, but in spite of the lack of it. I'm proud of who I've become. And I hope those who once looked past me understand something now. I paused, then smiled softly. You don't get to share in my success if you never acknowledged my struggle. I handed the mic back and stepped down. Silence followed me, but not discomfort. Respect. A few people clapped. Most sat frozen. My mom dabbed her eyes with a napkin. My dad stared at the floor. Kyle. He wouldn't even meet my gaze. But that wasn't the point. The point was, I said it. Out loud. To all of them. And I didn't flinch. After the speech, I didn't linger. I thanked Anne for inviting me, hugged her politely, and made my way outside. The vineyard air was crisp, and the stars were starting to appear above the hills. I stood near the valet station, breathing in deeply, letting the silence wrap around me like a blanket. For the first time in my life, I had said what needed to be said, in front of everyone who once treated me like an afterthought. And instead of crumbling under their stares, I stood tall. I was halfway through dialing a car service when I heard footsteps behind me. Hey. Kyle. I didn't turn around immediately. I didn't need to. Some speech, he said, his voice cautious. You really went there, huh? I finally turned, facing him under the soft glow of the vineyard lanterns. His jaw was tense. He wasn't smirking anymore. I said the truth, I replied. That's all. Kyle folded his arms. You made Mom cry. Dad looked like someone punched him in the face. I've cried alone more nights than they'll ever understand, I said calmly. And neither of them ever noticed. His lips parted slightly, as if he wanted to say something, defend them, maybe. But he didn't. Instead, he said, Look, I know I wasn't always a great brother. You weren't any kind of brother, I cut in. Not when it mattered. Silence. He looked away. You know, I used to think you were just bitter. That you liked playing the victim. But now I get it. You weren't the problem. We were. That stopped me. He exhaled hard and added, You don't owe me anything. I know that. I messed up. For a second, I saw a flash of the boy he used to be, the golden child, invincible and oblivious. And now? Now he looked like someone who had finally run out of people to lean on. I don't hate you, Kyle, I said. I just learned how to live without needing your approval. He nodded, almost too slowly. Then he stepped closer. Just, don't shut us out completely. I tilted my head slightly. That depends on whether you want a real relationship, or just access. He didn't answer. Didn't have to. Because deep down, we both knew the answer. My ride pulled up, and I got in without another word. As we drove through the winding roads back toward the city, I stared out the window, thinking about how strange it felt, not triumphant, not bitter. Just free. The next few weeks were a blur of intensity at work. The East Sector project was nearing completion, and I was knee-deep in onboarding meetings, timeline revisions, and implementation schedules. My team looked to me for guidance. People I once tiptoed around now asked for my sign-off. Caroline pulled me into her office one Friday evening, a bottle of wine on her desk. "You've got something rare," she said, pouring 2 glasses. "Tenacity without ego. Vision without arrogance. And let me guess, no Ivy League diploma?" I smiled, shaking my head. "Community college. Worked 2 jobs to get through it." She clinked her glass against mine. "Good. I'll take one of you over 10 Harvard grads any day." We toasted, and as I sipped, I realized something. I was no longer trying to prove anything. I was just living. Building. Thriving. Then, one Monday morning, a buzz came to my office phone. "Ms. Quinn? There's a Mr. and Mrs. Sanders here asking to speak with you." It took me a moment to realize that was my last name, and that they meant my parents. I stared at the phone for a moment, then replied, "Tell them I'm in a meeting." I wasn't. But I needed time to think. Why were they here? What did they want? I stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city. The glass reflected a version of me I didn't always recognize, someone polished, professional, composed. But I remembered the girl under it all, the one who once sat alone at the dinner table while everyone else laughed in another room. I took a breath and walked to the elevator. When I reached the lobby, I spotted them immediately. Mom was wearing the same blue cardigan she always wore to school events. Dad had on his tan windbreaker and that stiff posture that made him look like he was constantly bracing for a fight. They both stood up when they saw me. "Nancy," Mom said softly. "We just wanted to talk." I nodded and led them to a quiet corner near the indoor garden. No assistants. No audience. Just us. "I wasn't expecting you," I said. Dad cleared his throat. "We saw your segment in the Business Journal. About the East Sector launch. Congratulations." I nodded. "We realized," Mom added, "that we haven't always done right by you." I didn't respond. She looked down at her hands. "The truth is, we were scared. Kyle was always the loud one. The confident one. And you were quiet. We thought you'd be fine on your own." "That's not an excuse," I said evenly. "You didn't think I'd be fine. You just didn't think about me at all." Mom winced. Dad spoke next. "We were wrong. We know that now. We let the spotlight stay on Kyle too long. We forgot that you were the one in the dark." I let the silence stretch before finally saying, "So why are you really here?" They looked at each other. "We want to know you again," Mom said. "Not because you're successful. But because we finally understand what we lost." My heart didn't break. It didn't swell either. It just accepted. "I'm not angry," I said. "Not anymore. But I'm not going to forget everything either. If this is just guilt." "It's not," Dad interrupted quickly. "We don't expect anything. We just want a chance to try." And for the first time, their words didn't feel like manipulation. They felt like 2 aging parents trying, clumsily, to make amends. I stood slowly. "I'm not making promises," I said. "But I'm open to starting over. As long as it's real." Mom nodded, eyes brimming. Dad simply said, "Fair." We didn't hug. But when they left, I didn't feel like they'd taken anything from me. I felt like I'd given something, on my own terms. Later that night, I called Jonah. Told him what happened. He just chuckled. Took them long enough. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You turned out just fine, Nancy. And you didn't climb out of the dark just to shine for them. You shine because it's who you are." I smiled, holding the phone to my chest for a moment before whispering to myself. Finally. 3 days after that quiet conversation in the lobby, something unexpected happened. Caroline called me into a closed-door meeting with Jonah and two other senior executives. The air in the room was different, not tense, but thick with anticipation. Jonah gestured toward the seat across from him. "Sit, Nancy. We've got news." Caroline slid a folder across the table. Inside, it was stamped with the words "Confidential, Internal Advancement Opportunity." I looked up, startled. Jonah leaned forward. "We've decided to promote you, again. But this time, it's not just a department shift." Caroline smiled. "The East Sector project proved your ability to lead, adapt, and build trust at scale. We want you to head a brand new division. One that interfaces directly with clients and investors." I felt the words hit me like waves, not crashing, but washing away the old doubts that had lived inside me for so long. This is an executive position?" I asked slowly. "It's more than that," Jonah said. "It's the same path I took when I was your age. You'll be Vice President of Strategic Operations, effective next quarter. We'll announce it publicly next month." Caroline tapped the folder gently. "And your team will include 3 department heads reporting directly to you." I blinked, unsure whether to laugh or cry. Not just a desk. Not just a job. A division. My name, on a title that once felt like fantasy. "I don't know what to say," I murmured. "Say yes," Jonah replied. I did. But not for them. For me. Because this wasn't just about success. This was about redemption, not from the outside world, but from the one I built in my head every night I cried myself to sleep in the back of a freezing sedan. After the meeting, I went home and opened my old notebook, the one I used to scribble in during my delivery nights, full of customer addresses, spare change records, and tired dreams. On the inside cover, I had once written in blue ink, "You are more than their silence." I traced the sentence with my finger. Then I closed it for the last time. A week later, Jonah arranged a press conference for Lucented's new expansion project. My promotion would be announced alongside a joint partnership with a Fortune 500 company, a major deal I had helped initiate through my prior integration work. It was a surreal moment. I stood at a podium, cameras flashing, reporters watching, corporate leaders in the front row. I spoke clearly, confidently, the words flowing without stutter. But what struck me most wasn't the press, or the applause, or the executive handshake afterward. It was who stood at the very back of the crowd, behind the suits and the headlines. My parents. My mother had tears on her cheeks. My father's eyes were fixed on me like he was seeing me for the first time. And in that moment, I understood something. They were no longer in the position to define me. They were witnesses now. Witnesses to what it looked like when the forgotten child stopped waiting to be seen, and became someone impossible to ignore. After the conference, I went to the back hallway alone, letting the pressure fall away from my shoulders. That's when Kyle approached. He wasn't dressed like a tech founder anymore. No blazer. No shiny shoes. Just jeans, sneakers, and a look of humility I had never seen on him before. "Hey," he said quietly. "Congrats." "Really?" I nodded. "Thanks." He hesitated. I wanted to apologize again. I don't think I ever really got it. What you went through. I just thought you were angry all the time." I replied. But I didn't start that way. He looked down. "I know I asked for a favor before. I won't do that again. I just hope, someday, you'll let me earn a relationship with you. As your brother. Nothing more." I studied him for a moment. Not because I didn't believe him, but because I needed to believe myself when I responded. "You don't get to walk back into my life just because it's brighter now," I said gently. "But if you're willing to meet me in truth, not in convenience, then maybe we can start again." He nodded. "That's fair." We didn't hug. But we didn't walk away as strangers either. That night, I stood by the river again. Same stretch of water. Same city lights. But everything had changed. My body didn't ache from delivery shifts. My heart wasn't bruised from silence. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was waiting for anyone. Not approval. Not praise. Not permission. I was free. And the life I'd built was mine. It was a Sunday afternoon when I returned to the neighborhood I grew up in, the one with the chipped white fences, the faded porches, and the echo of a girl I used to be. I hadn't stepped foot there in years. Not because I couldn't. But because I didn't want to. Still, something inside me felt ready. Not out of nostalgia, but closure. I parked outside the old house. The same wind chime still hung by the door, though now the sound felt softer, more distant, like a memory untangling itself. Mom answered the door. She looked older. Tired in the eyes. "Hi," I said simply. She didn't say anything for a second. "Then, Nancy." I stepped inside. The house smelled the same, cinnamon and old paper. There were photos on the wall, most of them still of Kyle. But now, tucked into the end of the hallway, was a new frame. A photo of me at the Lucent Edge announcement, standing behind the podium, eyes bright, shoulders straight. My mom followed my gaze. "Your dad printed that out the day after the press conference. Said we should have had more pictures of you a long time ago." I didn't reply. I just walked to the living room and sat on the edge of the old couch. Kyle came in from the kitchen a few moments later. He nodded at me but didn't push anything further. And then Dad came in last. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he held out a box. Inside were the old report cards I thought had been thrown away, a handful of writing competition ribbons I didn't know they'd kept, and a folded sheet of paper, one I instantly recognized. It was the scholarship letter I'd received from the community college all those years ago. The one no one had celebrated. "We didn't throw everything away," Dad said quietly. We didn't know how to celebrate the quiet things." I looked at the paper, then back at him. "You didn't have to throw anything away," I said. "You just had to show up." He sat down across from me, folding his hands. "We're sorry, Nancy. And we're proud. Whether you ever come back here again or not, I want you to remember that." For the first time in my life, I saw something in my father's eyes that I'd never seen before. Regret. And maybe, humility. I didn't forgive them all at once. That's not how healing works. But I didn't leave angry either. I left with something better. Understanding. That night, I returned to my apartment, the one I now owned. Yes, owned. With my promotion finalized and my bonuses accumulated, I'd finally closed on the lease-to-own deal I'd been working on for over a year. It wasn't huge. But it was mine. Every corner held a memory of growth. A second-hand bookshelf I'd assembled by myself. A work desk by the window where my first major project was completed. A fridge with food I bought, not scavenged or borrowed. And next to the window, a little framed note I'd written in my lowest moment, now preserved behind glass. "One day, you'll stop surviving. And you'll start living. Keep going." I poured a glass of wine, opened my laptop, and clicked through the finalized rollout plans for our new division. Caroline had officially named me VP in the press release. Jonah had already forwarded my name to 3 advisory boards. And I had a voice now. A seat at the table I'd once been told wasn't meant for someone like me. I posted a photo, just a snapshot of the river outside my window, glowing under the city lights. Caption: "Quiet doesn't mean invisible. Some of us were just preparing. Watch what happens when we finally speak." The comments poured in: coworkers, college peers, even strangers who'd followed the Lucent Edge story. But one caught my eye. At Kyle.Sanders, she didn't climb. she soared. Proud of you, sis. I didn't reply. But I smiled. And that night, as the wind stirred the curtains and Jasper the plant leaned gently toward the glass, I finally allowed myself the thing I had once thought was too extravagant to hope for. Peace. Not because the past was erased, but because I had rewritten my future with my own hands. This was my story. And it no longer belonged to those who overlooked me. It belonged to me. And I was proud of every page. Nancy's story is a reminder that success is not just about status or wealth, it's about reclaiming your voice after a lifetime of being silenced. She didn't seek revenge through cruelty. She chose to win through perseverance, self-respect, and dignity. Sometimes, the greatest revenge is simply becoming everything they said you couldn't be. What did Nancy's journey mean to you? Have you ever been underestimated or overlooked? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to Revenge Echoes for more powerful stories where the quiet rise loud.